On today's episode, I sit down with Kellianne Fedio. Kellianne and I have become really great friends in a short period of time. I am so inspired when I have the opportunity to sit down and connect and chat with her. She's a big picture, humble thinker. She talks about her lowly seven-figure Amazon business, which is just a fast. It's incredible what she was able to achieve exiting that business. She's now the host of Amazing Exits. She handles everything from M&A litigation. She's building platforms. She's the consummate entrepreneur, and she really takes us on a journey of, what it is. It's very raw, it's very real, and I just feel very fortunate that I got to share time sitting down and chatting with her, and I hope you guys enjoy today's episode and everything she has to share.
Hi, and welcome to Successful Scales, the show where I interview now successful professionals about their journey and try and garner insights onto any tips that can be applied to your business at home. Whether it's financial freedom or the exit of your company, wherever your journey may take you, the idea here is to simply learn from those who have done it before. I hope you enjoy and you get some value out of this. Buckle up and enjoy the episode. Kellianne, welcome to another episode of Successful Scales.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, Yanni. It's such a pleasure, and I've so enjoyed getting to know you over these past few months, and excited to have our little chat today.
Likewise, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you too, and hearing all the amazing things that you've done and where you're heading and just everything. Just to echo that, it's been a pleasure. And I'm excited now for you to firstly tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and give a bit of an insight before we jump into the show. So probably a perfect segue to tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure. Before I do that, I do want to give you a compliment. And this was unsolicited, everybody in the audience, but I've listened to your first two episodes of your podcast, and I'm very jealous because you are like a natural podcaster. You just have this way about you. And I love it. So you're off to a great start. So I'm very honored to be on. But my story, I've shared it with, in a lot of different forums, but I like to call myself a recovering attorney because it did take a while to go from practicing law to then becoming an entrepreneur. It wasn't like a straight shot for sure. And I practiced law for 10 years. And after I had my first daughter, having to put her into daycare and go back to work and litigate and fight and be contentious and adversarial all day long with big egos just was not my idea of a good lifestyle anymore. So, I went through about 2 years, I would say, of torture where I just hated dropping her off at daycare. I was miserable at work. I thought I didn't even tell my husband. I was like, how are we going to just go from, two really good incomes to one, in California, no less. Right. But finally I started sharing with him, all of my struggles. And I remember I was on a girls' trip to Vegas with my best friends. And I remember them telling me, you just got to do it. You just got to do it. You'll find something else. You'll find your true calling. I thought law was my true calling. It wasn't when I was married and had kids. It just didn't seem to fit. So anyway, luckily I was able to exit my law career. I really didn't have any intentions of going back at that time. I've since considered it, but over the years, being able to raise my kids when they were little and be there for them, it wasn't too soon after that I realized, whatever my next career move is, it's going to be something that I'm going to build for myself, where I'm in control of my time, in control of the money that I make, and I can build it around my life and the life that I want to live. And that's what led me to entrepreneurship.
Was that sorry, I was just writing notes, if you might have seen, but was that like not a conscious decision, but was that in the back of your mind throughout your journey inside of law, that it wasn't the right journey for you and that you wanted to step into entrepreneurship? Or was that something that kind of developed later on?
It definitely developed later. I mean, I was very traditional in terms of by the time I was in high school and early college, I'm like, I'm going to go to law school. I'm going to be an attorney. I'm going to be, then it was like, what kind of attorney am I going to be? At first I thought I was going to go into criminal law. Then I thought I might go into tax law. And then I picked civil litigation. Okay. So now I'm going to go to court and try cases, and I'm going to be this high powered attorney and make partner, yada, yada, yada. And it all sounded so glamorous and exciting. And not to say that it wasn't, and I wouldn't, change any of it. Going back, I mean, I always say like, gosh, I wish I would have discovered entrepreneurship, way younger. But the fact of the matter is it molded me into the person that I am today. And, I gained a lot of great skill sets. I love the study of law. I would go to law school 10 times over. I don't think I'd take the bar exam 10 times over. That part wasn't fun, but I really do enjoy education and learning. And so, it really wasn't until after I had kids that I realized, whatever I do from this point forward, it has to be, flexible and something that I can do from anywhere in the world. So I knew it had to be something online, some kind of online business. And so then I started venturing into all the different ways, you do a Google search, how to make money online, how to work from home, right? And you get hit with so many different things, everything from multi-level marketing to affiliate marketing, to blogging, to writing ebooks, to, becoming an influencer, all this stuff. And so I kind of waded through all of this noise for a few years until I discovered e-commerce. And it was, the first time I ever sold a product. It wasn't my own product. It wasn't something I created. I was, basically doing online arbitrage at the time. But the second that I made a sale, I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, I knew I wanted to be in e-commerce. I knew that physical products and being able for them to be delivered, to your door. I mean, then obviously Amazon existed, but it wasn't to the extent that it is like even today, where, just because of COVID, e-commerce has accelerated like by 5 years. It's still in its infancy. It's still in its infancy. So I just knew that that was the industry that I wanted to be in. And slowly but surely made my way to the whole model of launching and scaling a brand on the Amazon channel. And that's where I just went all in and launched my first brand in 2014.
Wow. And what a time to get into. We're talking, I've been talking a little bit about what I would say is the Amazon gold rush in terms of, the state of e-commerce and where it's heading with all the VC money pouring in. But that was the FBA gold rush in 2014. Yeah. And for those listening who don't know, in 2014 was the year that Amazon created Fulfillment by Amazon, which enabled sellers to sell effectively nationwide. Just all you had to do was get your products into an Amazon fulfillment center. And obviously there's other aspects that, it's not like you just put them in and they get sold, but in terms of
back then almost.
yeah. I mean, it was an amazing time.
It was.
I only got in about 2016, 17. So I missed that initial stage, but, by all accounts, it was a pretty crazy time. And so we're kind of experiencing that time now, but for, I would say like the professionalism of the space, we're heading into that next tier. But I had questions for you.
Sure.
The question I had for you was, what was the first product you sold, and was it on Shopify? Did you hear that cha-ching? And that was what got you going. you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, it was a cha-ching, but it was actually on eBay. So my first foray into selling physical products online was arbitraging products, basically finding them cheaper somewhere online and then selling them on eBay. So eBay was my first platform that I really got involved in. And I actually, through drop shipping and this online arbitrage, I probably did that for close to a year. And I was making really decent money. I was making, $20,000 a month, but it was a real grind. And it just, at the end of the day, it just didn't feel like it was real. It didn't really feel like it was contributing value to the world, to customers, buying low, selling high. I just, not that I was ashamed of it, but it just didn't really seem like a real business. And so, I was searching for how would I go about creating my own brand and selling my own line of products? So when I first got started, I was selling a lot of pet products. And so I thought, I would love to start my own pet brand. I love dogs. I love my cat. I would love to start something in that field. I didn't end up doing that, or going into that niche, but it's just like, how do I do this? And luckily, I happened to be on several email lists at the time. I was on an email list for a big affiliate for that course called Amazing Selling Machine, which most people have heard of in the Amazon space. It's now called Amazing. And that affiliate who was marketing the course was Ryan Moran. So I was in his group called The Tribe. And through that, went through the course, attended all the live events, attended Ryan's events, met some amazing people, masterminded with some amazing people who I'm still friends with to this day. and really just successfully and seemingly very quickly launched, and scaled a 7-figure brand. So it far exceeded my expectations of when I started, for sure.
Wow. I mean, we've been chatting for months and months now, and I feel like I know you so well, but hearing you kind of describe your journey on how you did it, it says a lot about, I think, you, and, bringing it back to the show's Successful Scales. Like, it's no surprise that you sit in the position you sit in now, knowing that, you're a self-starter and that you've gone and done the research, and you did you did the junk time, as I would call it, where you did the research for a year or two to actually find out that, like, these pyramid schemes are not really what they're cracked out to be. And you've gone through effectively the arbitrage, which I went through myself too. I had an amazing website. It was called justforlads.com. And
I love it.
and I was trying to curate products for men, and I got absolutely stung because I had products that were knives, and Facebook won't allow you to buy media against the site. That destroyed my Just for Lads. Still got the domain, but
it's a cool domain. You should definitely put it to use.
I know. I'm thinking, like, anyone listening, if you want to buy it, it's on the table. But it's just showing that you're a self-starter, that you've gone through that process. You've kind of evolved the learning from the arbitrage, and that's pretty decent coin when we're talking about doing 20,000 a month from an arbitrage business to then saying, well, I'm not adding enough value going into your own product development. Like, for me, as someone who's been on a similar route, that feels like a pretty quick turnaround time too. So it also just kind of sets the tone for where you're at and where you're heading. So just really cool to hear that.
Well, it's, I don't want to paint the picture that it was just a straight line to success, because as entrepreneurs, it's mostly, when you tell your story in retrospect, it all sounds like unicorns and butterflies, right? But obviously it wasn't. Tons of ups and downs, tons and tons of mistakes, tons of wasted money, time, resources. I've made probably every mistake out there, but I truly believe in being a self-starter is what's going to get you to where you need to be. You've got to learn by doing. I mean, you could take as many courses in the world, listen to as many podcasts, Audible books, read books, go to conferences, all of that, but you just have to take action. It sounds so cliche, but that's really the only way you get anywhere. And so I truly believe in failing forward as a way to success.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I was trying to find this quote that I just read from Elon Musk that he said on Clubhouse, and it was something along the lines, and I'm going to ruin this right now, but it was something along the lines of, someone asked the question, what advice would you give to an entrepreneur who's like stuck and struggling? Like, what words of advice? And I think it was something along the lines of, like, don't start. If you're an entrepreneur, you're not going to have anyone sitting there patting you on the back, mollycoddling you, giving you, like, be ready for that journey. So making the
Exactly.
mistakes.
I know exactly the quote you're talking about, because
please.
It got highly publicized as being crass or whatever, but you've got to love Elon Musk, right? It basically said that if you're going to ask how to do it or ask for advice, then you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. Because it's all about finding those answers, right? And with the internet, there is no excuse to not come up with the answers. The problem with the internet is it's just too much information, knowing really what to hone in on to be successful. But there's no lack of information, that's for sure. So there's no excuse for anybody. Everybody should be successful if they want to be.
Yeah. And there was another quote that I read that was like, being intelligent is 10% of it. It's the work put in and doing the learning and evolving.
Oh yeah. I know plenty of highly intelligent people, in my own family included, who are so intelligent, but they don't have that action piece. And so without action, it means nothing. It's pretty meaningless.
I could keep rattling off all of these quotes here, but I'll stop.
I know. I love it too.
Well, we were having a great chat before. It's funny. We almost didn't get to doing the podcast because we were sitting talking about everything else that interests us. And I just figured we should probably push record at some point. And one of the points that you pointed out was when we were talking about, like, what are we going to talk? I was asking the question, what are we going to talk about in the show today? Some points of difference and things that are going to be super relevant and current. And you were saying very candidly, like, I'm not the person to tell you about, scaling to 10 billion figures and, all these. I actually heard another hilarious thing in Clubhouse. They were saying, it was the Branded by Women preamble to the summit, and someone had talked about like a willy wagging competition where where everyone goes in talking about, you know,
So
7,
true.
8, 9, 10 figures and, you know, and all this stuff. And I couldn't
It's so
stop
true. We
laughing.
all get caught up into it. It's like, you know, are you a lowly 7-figure seller, or are you up here at an 8 or 9-figure seller, right? I was just a lowly 7-figure seller. But, you know, now that I've gotten into this whole world of mergers and acquisitions and, you know, the selling of Amazon businesses and what it takes to be successful there, that doesn't mean shit. Can I curse on the podcast?
Of course you can. Of
It
course
doesn't
you
mean
can.
it's profitability that matters. So yeah. And I think people are, you know, especially in our space, are starting to recognize that, especially with all the activity that's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so to that point, you know, you made a conscious decision, and do you know what? I got to pull you up there. You cannot say lowly 7 figures in the same sentence. That is ridiculous. You created a business that you went and sold, and, you know, made more money on that exit than a lot of sellers will make in their entire career of selling without making a decision like that. So I'd love to hear a little bit about the decisions you made along that journey around, you know, there's the decision around scaling and trying to build something really big, and you know, having maybe more of a lifestyle brand, and then obviously some who have the ambition of exit. Like, talk me through a little bit about your decision-making process.
Yeah, and thank you for that. You know, I'm not trying to be too self-effacing. I'm confident yet humble, but I still do suffer from imposter syndrome, like most entrepreneurs, I think, in terms of always comparing myself to other people. And so, you know, when I look at some of my successful friends and colleagues who are doing the 8 figures and the 9 figures, you know, it's like, wow, you know, I could never do that, right? So it really was, Yoni, it was an evolution for me to get to a point where I was comfortable in my own skin of feeling like, really, what do I want out of my business long-term, and why? When I started it, it was like, I just want to make money online. You know, I just want to, it was almost transactional. It's like, I just want to prove that I can make money online. I had done it with the online arbitrage, and now I was going to start my own brand. And I, you know, have no experience in branding or marketing or, you know, product design and development or sourcing, no experience at all, like many other Amazon e-commerce sellers.
I feel like you're selling yourself short again. I keep jumping in here and saying that, but you actually, I feel like what I was understanding earlier was that your decision was that you were now in a position where you had a family to care for, you were working hours as a lawyer, you weren't in control. And so maybe the ultimate goal was to make money and afford that freedom, but it was a decision that you made to enable a life that you wanted to live. So yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for reframing it that way. That's exactly right. It's you know, bringing money into our household to support the lifestyle that we wanted to maintain, and also to grow, because, you know, I'm never satisfied at the status quo. The way I look at it, the wealthier I become, the more people that I can help. So my goal is to become as wealthy as possible, but it's not so that I can go buy a Ferrari or something. I might buy a couple nice things for myself, but really it's so that I can help, you know, first and foremost, my family. I want to create legacy, generational wealth for my children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, and on and on and on. You know, because I grew up a very modest means. You know, my dad was super poor. He grew up in Bahrain, and he was, you know, his dad died when he was young, and he was pretty much raised by his grandmother, who was a missionary. And then he, you know, came over to the United States. The missionary actually paid for him to go to college and for his graduate degree. He met my mom, who was American, and they got married. They're no longer married, but, you know, like, he worked so hard. And you know, and that's a very similar story to so many other folks, but it just really made me realize that, like, wow, like, just from one generation to the next, how much has been accomplished. And I'm not trying to say that that's all because of me and what I did, but it's just, you know, when you see people working really hard, and my mother worked hard as well. She was, you know, a stay-at-home mother, and, you know, she gave up a lot, sacrificed a lot. But just seeing how hard they work, knowing that, you know, I don't want my kids to have to ever want for anything. I don't want to spoil them, but I want them to have every advantage and every possible opportunity that there is and not have to fight for it or worry about it. I don't ever want money to stand in the way of having a great experience, travel, education, anything. So I really felt it important to kind of lay that groundwork there of why it's so important for me to build wealth. And, with my newfound passion for helping Amazon and e-commerce entrepreneurs successfully sell their business, I truly believe that it is one of the fastest paths to wealth building is to create a business like an Amazon business and sell it. So I think you might have asked me a question and I think I might have gone off track and forgotten it. I'm sorry.
Well, I'll tell you, I've got another question to answer that question. I just spoke to another amazing person. His name's Ram Castillo, and that podcast will come out at some point. But he is Filipino born, but grew up in Australia, moved there when he was 1, and also sort of came from a less than ideal upbringing in terms of, what it was like to have food on the table and what his parents went through and kind of those challenges. He was talking about how he didn't even know that he was poor growing up. But my question to you is, how much do you think, with kind of knowing the answer to this already, but how much do you feel like that is a motivating factor for you, knowing kind of where your father and your background has come from and where you sit today? How much of that is like a motivating factor for you today?
It's huge. I don't think that there's anything fun about being poor. There just isn't. And I think that when money is not an issue, you are free to go out there and do anything, including doing good in the world and helping others. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't help others or do good in the world until you're financially free. But I just believe that the more that you put out into the universe, the bigger the ripple effect is going to be. Right now, my ripple effect, I'm hoping, is just my immediate, my daughters, right? Like, they are teenagers. I want them to see that I was able to have it all, have a great marriage, have a great family life, and also a career that I love, being an entrepreneurial career. And I want them to see that that's possible. If they decide to go the, traditional job route, and that's what they want, even though I, tell them the pros and cons of that, mostly cons, that's a decision that they need to make for themselves and learn experientially. Like, I'm hoping that they'll take those lessons, but they're going to do what they're going to do, and they'll have to see for themselves. But yeah, it's a huge motivating factor, because when you're worried about money, like I know that's probably one of the biggest reasons why my parents split up and so many people split up. It causes so much stress and heartache. And I'm not trying to make it like we were like homeless or didn't have food on the table. We had food on the table, all that kind of stuff. But the places that we lived, we were always seeming to be like on the bottom end of the socioeconomic ladder. So it was always almost like a shame around it. I don't really talk about this much, but a shame about it. And there's nothing shameful about it at all. But I just have to admit that it is a big motivating factor for me. My kids, the life that they have, and they know it, and we tell it to them every day, you've got a really good life. And, this is what we're here for as your parents, is to provide this life for you. And so you have no excuses to not go out and do good in the world, because you've had everything given to you. And now you need to go and do something with that.
That is damn good parenting. It's funny. My dad actually was somewhat of a successful entrepreneur. He's built and sold several businesses, and I felt like he always pushed me to work for someone else my whole career. Like he actually didn't. Yeah, he actually pushed me, and his advice always was learn on someone else's dollar. And I couldn't understand that at the start, but now doing, doing a decade really working for other people, and now the last 4 or 5 years stepping away from it, has been, an invaluable lesson in how to see things bigger than I would have, to be able to now look and try and, go after those very aspirational goals, working with some of the biggest companies in the world and seeing what it's like. Yeah, I want it. I want to take it to that level. I want to impact that many lives. It really resonated with me when you were saying before about, I talk about it a lot. I haven't on the podcast before, but I talk about it a lot. For me, my goals in life are much more altruistic than anything that's attached to what I'm doing today. But because my metric is how many jobs we created, how many fair paying jobs we created. It allows me to kind of serve my immediate purpose now and feel very satiated in all that I'm doing. But I knew that we really hit it off and connected on a very deep level, and just sitting here and talking to you now and hearing about, how aligned our philosophies are, it's just, further fuel to the fire of whatever you call this relationship.
Well, it's just so cool because, I mean, I had good work friends back when I was working as a litigator and all that, but ever since becoming an entrepreneur and, I can't speak for other industries because I've only ever been in e-commerce as an entrepreneur, but the quality of people that I have met, the long lasting relationships. I mean, we were introduced by Chelsea Cohen just 2 or 3 months ago, and we've, just hit it off and become great friends. And that's something I do not take for granted. Like every day I wake up excited to go to work, excited. I mean, I spend most of my days on calls with people, just, getting to know them, seeing how we can, explore synergies to help one another. And it's just what it's all about. And it's just such a great community that we're a part of. And I'm really grateful for that and for your friendship.
Yeah, likewise. I totally agree with everything you put out. I wake up excited too, and the people that I get to speak to and doing things like this, it's just it's extremely fulfilling. But to get onto track about successfully scaling, I would love to just hear a little bit more about that decision for you when we talk about where you sat. You've successfully exited a business, which is a pretty big deal. And so as someone who's played in, you play in the M&A space now, and you wear a lot of hats and you do a lot of things. But I'd love to hear a little bit about that journey, if that's okay, just around the decisions around it, whether you scale versus didn't, and what that looked like.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, because you did ask me that before and I went off on some huge tangent. So
classic us.
So it was, as I started to say earlier, it was an evolution. So I first suffered from, oh my God, I've got to be big. I've got to grow. Like when I hit 7 figures, like, okay, now I have to hit 8 figures. And I had no clue what that meant. I just knew that I needed to be bigger and better. And I was comparing myself to these bigger and better entrepreneurs out there and had no clue how to get there. I knew I needed to scale, had no clue what that meant. I knew it probably involved hiring people and having a team, but a lot of the industry that existed at that time around team building and leadership, it was really more about hiring VAs. And I think that I definitely fell into the trap of, oh, I can hire this like magical, all-knowing, omnipotent VA who's just going to magically do everything for me.
The unicorn.
Yes, exactly. And, and I was trying to educate myself on how to be a good leader and how to build a team, and thinking that I had to live up, I had to fill these shoes to go to the next level. And I failed miserably at that in terms of like team building, SOPs, forget about it. It was like nails on a chalkboard for me to sit there and think about, okay, taking what's in my head and putting that down in some sort of written or verbal or process. And I tried studying, I tried reading all the books. I tried reading, Clockwork by Mike Michalowicz. And I read Gino Wickman's Traction, all of these books, and it's like, yeah, it sounds so good. And then I would just always come up feeling deficient. Like, I don't know what the first step to take is. And so, I tried hiring people. I tried using like Process Street to write SOPs. I just wasted a lot of friggin' time. And at the end of the day, I'm like, you know what? I got this business to where it is based on being a solopreneur. I did have a small team. So I had, a customer service manager. I had a creative director. I had a graphic designer. And then towards the very end of building my company, I did really streamline my supply chain. So I hired a supply chain manager, and those all came very organically. When I tried to like force it and be like, okay, I've got to scale now, because that's what business owners do. You either grow or die, right? It caused a lot of insecurity, a lot of confusion, a lot of wasted time. And during that whole time, I'm also trying to scale to other platforms and be multi-channel, get into retail. I mean, there's just so much noise. And I took my eye off the ball, and my business suffered for it, for sure. And so it wasn't until I finally came at peace with myself that, okay, do I have what it takes to build these new skill sets to scale to the next level? Yes, I can figure it out. If that's what I make my mission, I will figure it out. Do I want to at this time? My decision was no. I want to keep it as is. I'm going to keep, I still was growing the business, but to really get to that next level, I decided that I am going to sell the business and let the acquirer take this business to the next level, because there are tons of growth opportunities. And my next rodeo, then I'll worry about the scaling. So that's kind of putting it very simply. There was a lot of decisions that went into selling the business, but that was one of them, is that I just knew that that's as far as I wanted to take it. I did decide, this is a lifestyle business for me. Towards the last few years, I was working maybe 10 hours a week. Became very interested in, I do a lot of networking, a lot of speaking, a lot of conferences and things like that. So all of that, took up time. And then I'm also very passionate about investing, and plus being a wife and a mom, and also taking care of myself. Those are all full-time endeavors. So that's what suited me. And that's what I wanted out of my business long-term. And I just urge every entrepreneur, if you can, from the moment you start your business, it doesn't mean it won't change, but know what you want out of your business long-term and why. Know what direction you want to take it, and know what your strengths and weaknesses are. And it doesn't mean that if your weaknesses are there, you can't overcome those, but just be real about them and don't feel inferior about it like I was feeling. I hope that made sense.
Not only did it make sense, there was so many great nuggets of advice that you just gave there. And I want to kind of unpack a few of them. But before I unpack, question for you. When you were going down that journey, you're talking about the fact that, it was the time to scale the company. You're trying to go to different platforms, marketplaces, countries. You're looking to build out SOPs. How long was that kind of consideration period until you said, right, I'm not built for this? Or I guess it's also ladders into my other question of, you talk about being a solopreneur. Did you ever consider bringing on a partner or finding someone that had complementary skill sets? Like what did this whole kind of, decision-making period of scale versus sale look like to you?
Yeah. I would say that the entire period from feeling this kind of inferiority complex to trying to do all this, go to other channels. And it's not for lack of trying. I tried to hire the right agencies, partners, consultants to help me with all of this. And some of them were good and some of them were not. If I had known that a resource like what you offer existed back then, I don't know if it did, with not only Multiply Me, but a Scala, my decision might have been different, to be honest. But I didn't find the right resources. They're really the biggest training out there, for Amazon businesses and getting help was to write SOPs and go hire some Filipino VAs. Like that was pretty much it. And there's a lot of great marketplaces that have sprung up, like Free Up, to go ahead and hire talent. But I was not a good leader. When I would hire people, I would abdicate responsibility versus, properly training and delegating, because I'm a very impatient person by nature. And I expect what's in my head to just immediately be understood by the next person. And I realize how flawed that is. But that was my mindset at the time. And so at that time, I was like, I'm just not cut out for this. I'm not cut out to be a leader and to grow a team and to scale a team. I'll worry about that in my next business venture, And so there was a lot of emotions that went into it, but there were other factors at play too, which I can get into if you want, as far as selling the business. It wasn't just about the scaling, but those are the decisions that went into the whole thing about, I've built a great lifestyle business here. I've built a great business that another lifestyle entrepreneur can come and take over, or somebody can come and scale it to the moon. Either way, I knew I had built a great business. So that was something I was very proud of.
Yeah. And I think you should be also super proud of the self-awareness that so many of us lack around our limitations, around, like, I have operational deficiencies. Maybe I sit at the helm of a company that is focused on process improvement, but I wouldn't be able to manage that without the incredible team, without Lippy heading that up, and without Joan, as a COO running Multiply Me as an operation. Like, it's heavy lifting work, and it's a lot of repetition, and it's a lot of leadership, and it's a lot of getting into the nitty gritty. And I think you and I are wired the same way, that we see, it's not necessarily a new shiny object, but we're hungry for the chase of solving the problem. And once solved, get all the shit out of my head and do it.
Oh my God, totally. And I know I've got to work on that, because I do really want to become a good leader in all of my, new ventures. And to do that, you really have to be able to be patient, number one, and to have, processes in place so that you can then hand over, or systems in place so that you can then hand that over to somebody that you then delegate the responsibility to. So, I mean, everything that I've learned about what you and Lippy do, I know you like to think of yourself, and you definitely are like a visionary. I mean, I see that in Lippy as well, but Lippy is the executioner. He like gets it all done, an implementer. And if I had realized that about myself back then, that's exactly who I would have hired, as an implementation team or person, for sure.
Yeah, it's always like my most fascinating people to talk to are the COOs and the operations savvy people, because it's a skill set that I just, like I always say, on my best day, maybe I'm 60, 70% of what Lippy or Joan are when it comes to their ability to actually deliver on, something that's operationally sound. And so I think that the thing that I draw on from how you're painting yourself, and I'll lump myself in the same category as you two, is it's about focusing in and leaning into the skill sets that, were gifted to us. And, I would say it's about elevating those, rather than, you're never going to be great at everything. Just like the unicorn, the Filipino VA unicorn doesn't exist. And it doesn't, trust me, I've looked. I mean, there's some of the best talent in the world there, but they're going to be specialized in what they do. Like our Chief Innovation Officer, she's an absolute killer, 10 years UX UI experience. She's an industrial engineer by trade. And, she will, I believe, with our next venture, will change the world in terms of how to run businesses efficiently. So the unicorns don't exist, but super talented people do. And so focusing in on where you do bring value and really looking to evolve that, I think is probably the message that I take from that learning of you in your decision to sell the business.
Well, you just summed it up beautifully. I love how you said leaning into what your skill sets are and embracing those and elevating those, versus, really beating yourself up over not having the skill sets that others have that you wish you could have, but just don't seem natural to you, which is what I spent or wasted a lot of time doing.
Yeah, and me too. And that was also kind of my journey as well, where I realized I'm not a solopreneur. Like, I'm just not cut out for that. It's hard enough getting out of bed every morning, and you go through those challenges, but without having someone else to share in the wins and the losses and the challenges and the journey, it makes it all the more challenging to do it alone. So yeah, definitely leaning into that.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I am a solopreneur no more. Now it's like I can't work unless I'm around working with other people, whether it's on project basis or, new companies or consulting. I just love working with others. So I've definitely realized that about myself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the time that we get to spend together every couple of weeks, it's almost like a bit of a mastermind, with that, when I actually think about what we're doing,
Yeah.
we're bringing 5 or 6 people together, talking about different businesses that we're working on and collaborating with, and how we can actually add value. So yeah, I mean, that's also for me, like when I'm at my optimal, is like when I'm being pushed, where there's new ideas coming into the fold and you're trying to problem solve as a group. And your experience as well, and we haven't even had a chance to get into it, but amazing exits, an amazing concept of where you guys are taking it and how you're looking to really empower sellers to maximize, the journey that you went on in, effectively getting your first big payday. And I'll say first.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a wild ride, and I do feel like I have found I don't want to say true calling, because I believe that I'm going to have multiple callings even throughout the rest of my life. I mean, I don't see myself ever stopping working. I'm always, the second that you let your mind go dormant, like it's over. Like I'm always going to be craving like the next thing. And so right now that's all about exiting Amazon businesses as a way to build wealth and achieve, at the very least, financial security, if not complete financial freedom. So it's exciting. I'm doing that with my partner, Paul Miller. We have a podcast called Amazing Exits. We're still relatively new. We launched in September of 2020. So I think we've got about 26 episodes out. We just release one a week. But the caliber of conversations that we've had, the guests that we've had and been able to connect with has just been so valuable and enlightening. And I've learned so much, and there is no other place that I would rather be. I know I'm doing exactly what I'm meant to do right now, and we'll see where it takes me.
Kellianne, I love it. I love how, you're sitting here and you're embracing the moment. And, we get the chance to speak about this a lot, but we really are at a very exciting time in the state of e-commerce. And it feels like everything that's happening around this space, you almost feel like you're at the center of what's next in the world. So it's
exactly
super exciting. So before I let you go, and you've already given such great words of wisdom and advice throughout, the episode, is there anything that you would leave off with for anyone who is an aspiring entrepreneur, someone who's in the grind right now? Any words of wisdom that you'd like to share before I let you go? I'd love to keep going, but we're out of time.
You know what? I think this has been great. I love podcasts like this where we really talk about, I'm kind of bearing my soul here and talking about my insecurities and my issues. Is kind of like a therapy session, and it feels really good for me to talk about that. But I also hope that it will help others, because there's always going to be somebody more successful than you, and there's always going to be somebody behind you that wants to be you, right? And so I'm very mindful of both of those, and I've always tried to give back with a lot of mentoring. I try to be as free with my time as I can with folks who are just starting out. But my words of advice are, it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. It doesn't matter whether you are an attorney or a janitor. Like, e-commerce is an incredible opportunity. I can't imagine being anywhere else, and get involved in it somehow, some way, whether you're developing a brand or developing a SaaS or working for the company, one of the companies. Just learn by doing, and don't be afraid to fail. I know you asked for one piece of advice and I'm giving 10,000, but, know what you want out of your, I'm just going to say, your entrepreneurial career. Know the type of lifestyle that you want, and put that as a rock, on your calendar, on your life. Put your family and the things that are important to you on that calendar first before anything else in life, and just build it around, the type of life, because it doesn't matter if you've built this scaled 8-9 figure business if you're working 1,000 hours a week and miserable. It's not worth it. Life's too short.
You just made my life so easy, because what I like to do,
I know it's easy.
Well, no, you made my life easy, because at the end, one of my team, well, actually you made one of my team's life easy, because we'll go to get the audio bites to help promote the episode so people understand what we're talking about. You just gave 20 pieces of advice. So I can just say, go right to the end, take all the gold out of Kellianne's mouth and put it straight into it.
I don't know about gold, but...
Anyway, Kellianne, it's been amazing having you on here. I really appreciate you taking the time. For anyone listening in that might want to get in touch with you, find out more about Amazing Exits, whatever it might be, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yes, well, I highly encourage people to go to amazingexits.com and take our free assessment called the Freedom Score. And that's just a great way to kind of see where you are at in your journey of scaling and exiting your business. And then you can also schedule a call with us. And of course, listen to the podcast. And then if somebody wants to reach out to me personally, I'm on LinkedIn at Kellianne Fedio, Facebook at Kellianne Fedio, and Instagram at Kellianne Fedio.
Awesome. Well, Kellianne, thanks again. Excited to get this one out, hot off the presses. And looking forward to many more conversations. Thanks for your time.
Thanks so much, honey. It's been so fun. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Thank you.